Hey guys, it's Ronnie Phillips here again, recording for basically me and you and anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about how Esri ArcGIS works, specifically ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, and some of the Esri ArcGIS online mapping applications. So I was trying to think of how to go through this project. I actually had to give it for a college course that I was in back in May. This is December, so several months ago. And I had to create a PowerPoint presentation for it. So I figured the best way for me to do that is to go through that PowerPoint. So here it is. Like it says, this was a final lab project, and the project was just it was pretty open ended. Basically we just had to use GIS, and some buffer information to, create a buffer and throw in some, various spatial data located from wherever we could get it from and do something with it. It was, like I said, it was pretty open ended. But anyway, let's get into it. What I did was I used it to establish a business location. I made a pretend business. It was basically catering to dogs, grooming, daycare, boarding, things like that. And yeah, here it is right here. The marketing director for House of Flag LLC, trying to determine where to establish, dog catering service in North Richland Hills, Texas. I obtained some data from the city of North Richland Hills, who graciously gave me shapefiles for a lot of their data. USDA Data Gateway, I believe what I got from there was aerial data, and from the American Community Survey. So the overview was, it just showed the population. I looked at, all that stuff up, median income household, it's third largest city in Tarrant County, Texas, which is, Fort Worth is in Tarrant County. If you hadn't heard of Fort Worth, well, we're in North Texas, North Central Texas. But I created this map here. I created the map using Photoshop, really. You can tell that some of this stuff just doesn't come through in ArcMap's layout platform. It doesn't, do very well. So what I ended up doing was exporting a lot of the TIFFs. I'm trying to remember exactly what I did, but I exported basically all the layers and just kind of layered them together in Photoshop for a more pleasing outcome. You see, I've got the, some of the outside of North Richland Hills. This is the city boundary. I've got, this is kind of, frosted out. That's, frosting is just basically what we had called it. Um, yeah, but not a big deal. This is just a map of North Richland Hills. This was the median household income in 2016. You can see the income legend here. Like I said, not a big deal, but I wanted to put that in there to show, the income for the area that I was planning to establish a new business. And the median income or the median household size in 2006 was 2.54 people per household. You can see in the legend there how all that works out. And then I wanted to see rental versus homeowners because you can kind of tell, who might have dogs, in a certain area, versus anyone else. And according to the legend down there, it does say owned and rental. Whenever I created this, it was, oh, I think I created it at like 39 by 27 or something pretty close to that. And then I had to size it down, to fit into, the PowerPoint presentation. So it didn't really, work out all that well. But you can kind of see here you can see a lot of blue dots here. These are all the houses owned. And so we go on. What this was the purple here shows where there are businesses. You can see this purple dot here, according to the Grooming Services down here. This also does, this color is boarding and daycare. And what I did was I created 1 mile buffer rings around each of these locations to see the area that they covered, to see if there's any overlap. You can see there's plenty of overlap, according to these dots here. Here's a dot here, here's a dot there, and you can see that there's plenty of overlap. But these all mostly look for grooming services, not for boarding and daycare. You just got a boarding service here. There's a boarding service here. I've got over here in my comments, I've got four. So there's four of them in here. So we move on. And uh, from here, we can see the median household income. It's pretty decent for, you look up, towards the north there, and you can see that the household income's pretty steep up here. And as you start coming a little bit further south, you can see the household income drop quite a bit. And so yeah, maybe you might want to establish your new business, where there's people who will be able to pay for these things. And then we went in, I queried out, or I created a buffer, and showed the median household income or the median household size for those areas. Not a big deal, just kind of showed exactly what it shows right there in the legend. This was showing rental versus homeowners. Pretty much the same thing as I showed earlier. It's just constrained to within the buffers. Not really that big of a deal, but it can be helpful to know, who may have, animals, dogs. They kind of need to be out in an area, so it could be helpful to, who owns versus who rents. And based on that, we'll go back one. I did make a site selection, and I chose down in this area down over here. And we'll go into that here. This was my site selection. This was a parcel that was, what I ended up doing was querying out parcels that were outside of outside of those buffers, but were 1 acre and smaller. I believe that's what it was. And this site really seemed to fit the bill whenever I found it. It's located, in the middle of a, bunch of houses. People can, if you had a service that catered to dog daycare or boarding or anything like that, there's school here. There's plenty of shopping nearby. There's plenty of housing nearby. You could drop your kids off on the way home from work or on the way to school. And so that's kind of what was in my head. I went ahead and looked up the ownership information for it, and that is all it right here for that site there. So yeah, the end notes here, it just basically said again where I obtained my my data specifically, and that was pretty much it for it. It's not really intended to show too extensive of a demonstration, but it does demonstrate sort of the power of what you can determine using ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro or just a GIS program and some of that data. So that's basically it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments and stay tuned for more.